drive sober. This is Rogers TV, Durham Region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another COVID-19 local update. I'm Deborah Hutchison in the Rogers TV studio, and joining us via video once again is Mandy Dolley from GoodLife Fitness. Mandy, thank you for coming back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me back. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually.
We're going to spend the next half hour with Mandy, and she has some pretty great exercises that we can do not only at home to keep the body limber, but also help with our emotional health. Right, Mandy?
That's right. So especially now, whether there's so much going on, and not only just in the local area that we live, but in our country and globally as well. We sometimes, and especially during COVID, we are in what we have really kind of labeled as grief. And there are the 7 stages of grief, and, bargaining, sadness, anger, and ultimately there has to be there's a piece of acceptance. However, when there's other traumas going on during COVID, our grief is compounded, and it just kind of mushrooms and it gets bigger. We actually have the power within our physical bodies and our breath to actually self-regulate. So Deborah and I were chatting about that before we began. Mm-hmm. And our primitive, first of all, I think, training fitness or wellness needs to start with our brains. And we still have a very primitive brain to a certain degree, that when our eyes are open, and I think that we can all kind of agree, we're just being flooded by stimuli, whether it's just, whether it's the things we're watching or hearing on media, social media, television, a discussion with a friend or on a call or at work. And then, our eyes and our primitive brain are still receiving messages from our environment to keep us safe, because we come from, that primitive place where we want to make sure that the dinosaurs, I know we didn't live with dinosaurs, but, there's nothing threatening our safety. And so we're at a very heightened and alert state. That all, and all of a sudden we might actually realize that we're breathing into, the top third of our chest. And that breath brings our shoulders up and down here, and it actually increases stress and anxiety and the level of cortisol, which is our stress hormone in our body. And then we have to stop and pause just for a moment and remind ourselves to breathe.
Yeah, such a simple action, but one we really have to remind ourselves of, especially in these troubling times. Before we get to it, how do you react to someone that says, I'm too old to start now, or, I should have done it when I started this regimen when I was in my 20s. I'm past it. It won't do any good. How do you respond to that?
Well, a known fact is that the human body at any given time has the ability to improve. And, we might not have been exercising our entire lives just because we might have never had any sort of instance that kind of triggered or let us know how important our physical, emotional, mental health is. And I think that moments like these or times like this, it really brings it to the forefront. We're talking about immune systems. We're talking about, being cooped up at home, and we're feeling the physical kind of side effects from that, but we're also feeling the mental and the emotional side effects of that. And I really think that once again, we have the power and all of the resources without going anywhere. Like we really like look within what's important to us and what we can control. Let's focus on those things, like our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. The ability to self-regulate, whether we're using breath practices and calming our nervous system with a slower breath, or the practice of physical fitness being going out and walking, maybe even like we said on our first time together, just walking around your apartment, your house. If that's more movement than you did yesterday, then we celebrate with, immense pride and excitement, because movement is medicine. So long as, we don't have any of the big injuries in our body, movement is medicine, and a body in motion will stay in motion. And I often joke when I teach classes, like, we all know what it's like to sit on the couch and binge Netflix. And when you got to get up to get a drink or something, you're like, oh my goodness. And you get up from the couch, and it's, we feel the physical effects of being sedentary. And that's just in a small concentrated time. That over time and months, years, will have other effects on our bodies as well. So it's just important to start. And I'll just repeat the line that I've been saying, is that we don't have to have it all figured out to take your next best step forward.
I like it. Okay, I'm going to turn things over to you, and I'm going to let you lead us through some exercises. I guess we're focusing this first half on the body weight and using our own bodies to help us.
Exactly. So body weight is, all that we need to actually get a really great workout in. I'm going to do 4 exercises, and I'm going to bring them from the ground up. And we're even going to do burpees, Deborah. It's going to be amazing.
You're going to do burpees because I'm sitting at a desk. I worked this out really well for me today. So go ahead, Mandy Dolley from GoodLife Fitness.
All right, so I'm just going to move back, and I'm going to start. So the best, in my opinion, the best body weight exercise is a squat. And if we have, I'm going to start it once again from the ground up. So if people just haven't been moving, if you haven't been moving, how do I do a squat and how do I do it safely? And I say, well, let's grab a chair. And a squat, we say it a lot when we teach it in fitness, is you're gonna push your hips back like you're sitting in a chair. And if you are just starting out with fitness, I would say sit right down in the chair, but just lightly. Pushing through the heels into the floor, lift yourself back up. I'm keeping my hands in front of my body to remind myself to keep my chest lifted. Shoulders are down, and we think about what is a great posture and where's my spine. And we're going to keep your spine in that great alignment the whole time. We're going to sit down, tap your hips to the chair, and lift up. And what I say, I like to do maybe 10, and just keep going down and up. And every time we go down and up, if it's available, we're going to tap even lighter onto the chair. And then we might get really brave and step forward and try that move without the chair at all. We are using the really big muscles of our legs and our core to move our body here. And the resistance that we're moving is our body weight. Common fault with squats is tipping forward. So what happens when we do a squat here is that we miss out on our upper body weight. So we're going to make sure that we have our shoulders over hips before we begin. And we're going to load up the hips and the legs with the weight of our upper body. And just by doing that many, I feel a little breathy. I'll do some lunges. So I'm just going to come to the side for lunges here. I'm going to just bring my chair because balance is a big component for many people just starting out. And here with our chair, we have a little bit of security, and it gives us a little more confidence, I think, when we are moving. So in our lunge, we're going to take 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, turning our hips and shoulders one direction and bending 2 knees to 90 degrees. Now this chair is going to help me up. We're going to make sure that we're square. We're going to sink down and up, keeping our back heel lifted, down and up. And what's also great about lunges is the mobility work for the front of our hips. So if we think about turning our whole body, when we drop down into a lunge, the front of our hip and our hip flexor here, even some of our quad muscles will actually get longer. And then we press up. And this is a functional move because it replicates running, walking, one leg at a time. And of course, then we can switch. And again, if you need the chair, use the chair. Because once again, especially if we're just starting out, give yourself something that'll give you a little confidence and a little support. And we can increase that by adding a little balance if it's available. Squats, lunges, burpees. All right. So with burpees, so you can add speed and power to squats, lunges, and then there's these burpees. How do I get down to the floor and back up so quick? Well, you don't have to. A great burpee is actually really functional in its simplicity. It's a squat. It's a hands down to the floor, under the shoulders. And if you don't want to jump, you never have to. So if we were a traditional burpee, we're going to squat, hands down, jump back, jump in, and rise. For beginners, that's not anything we're going to be doing. Our beginner burpee is a squat, reach down, hands back, push up. Squat, reach down, hands to shoulders, reach back. And then when we get brave, squat, hands plant to the floor underneath the shoulders. We're going to take one foot back. More weight comes into our hands. We're going to take the other foot back. We're going to plank. And then we're going to walk our feet back in, squat, and rise. So I'm going to do that to the side so you can have a little better view. So it's going to be a squat. Well, of course, I got all that stuff behind me. Squat, hands down, plant them, open like starfish, spread your fingertips, step back, step back. Now we're in plank. And then we can step in, drop the hips really low, rise up. And then maybe we'll jump back, we'll jump in and up. Burpees, so good. While I was down there, I did a plank, and it's part of the next move that I'd love to talk about is push-ups. So we can get down to the floor, and I like to start these with my knees under the hips and hands really wide, like a yoga mat wide. And if we're just starting out, we're going to keep our hips high and just drop our shoulders down to the elbow height. So elbows at 90, press the floor away, and we lift up. So down, up, down, up. And as we get stronger, we're going to walk our hands further forward, and then our hips shift forward as well, but we don't want to ever drop them like this. We've seen some terrible push-ups in our days. We want to lift, then wrap the muscles around the bones of our hips and our ribs, and we come down again. Breath is really important. Wherever the power is, where we need most energy and effort, we're going to breathe out. So we're going to breathe in as we come down, and breathe out as we come up. And then if we get really strong, and knock everything over, we can, of course, bring ourselves to our toes, so long as that we are working really safe. So how do we put this all together into a little bit of a workout? I say, for a circuit, let's do 10 squats. Let's do 10 lunges on each side.
And then 10 burpees?
I was going to say, because burpees are a little bit bigger, let's do 5 burpees.
I'm taking notes here. Okay, 5 burpees. I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
And then what about the push-ups, Mandy?
Well, I said the last burpee, stay down on the push-up.
Ah.
Let's do 10.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to go for a quick break, but more exercise with Mandy Dolley of GoodLife Fitness after this.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV quiz.
Welcome back to your COVID-19 local update. I'm Deborah Hutchison, and joining us again is Mandy Dolley from GoodLife Fitness. Mandy, when we went to break, you were just finishing your circuit, and it would certainly have me out of breath. I'll tell you that much.
For sure. They're simple movements, and I think if you can, again, we always start with safety. So long as we can move with safety and really great execution, simplicity will offer a great deal of benefits because we can do them well. Then we can add intensity. That's where we're going to feel, that we're really accomplishing something and being successful in our movement journey. And then we think about how can we make this exciting, or how maybe can I involve family members if not alone, or how you could do this all by yourself too. I have just a plain old deck of cards. Nothing up my sleeves, just kidding. And I would say, so you could, every one move is one of the, I can't even remember the suits. So maybe squats are spades, and maybe lunges, where apparently I won in solitaire the other day.
Oh, good
Lunges
for you.
are clubs, burpees would be hearts, and push-ups, diamonds. So you can find a card. Oh, and if it's an ace, you have to do 20 of them. If it's a face card, you do 15. Otherwise, it's whatever the numerical value of the card is and whatever the spade is. Go through a whole deck of cards with your family and just have some fun with one another. It's also good to do it in partners. If you're doing a circuit and you're just doing a certain amount of numbers, just to have someone just cheer you on. And that has to be a prerequisite, that you're going to be each other's best cheerleader. But it's really great with simple movements like this to involve the family and get everybody active and moving and being a really great role model for our young people.
And
So
no need for equipment.
And again, all you need is a deck of cards. And I think that if the jokers are still stuck in there, someone has to do some sort of awesome dance move. I think that would be the best. And especially with kids, get creative, get silly, and just, enjoy the time that you have with them. And I know that sometimes it seems like too much togetherness, but it really is a wonderful, plus to this time together.
Well,
the next thing, go ahead.
I was just going to say, okay, so now that we have exercised and we're a little out of breath, let's slow everything down and let's talk about breathing and that stress release and perhaps a little bit of mobility flexibility.
Yes. So as we were saying in at the earlier segment, that our breath has a huge impact on our mental and emotional self, as well as our physical self. So if we're really finding ourselves stressed, we're taking that really shallow upper chest breath, our shoulders are coming up and down, cortisol is kind of skyrocketing away. And cortisol, again, the stress hormone, some things about cortisol that is really important to know, that if we keep dumping it into our system, that it actually inhibits weight loss, increases stress, which is, the things that we want to avoid. So understanding how we can self-regulate just through simple breathing practice is money in the bank. So if we can just slow ourselves down, maybe have some time. Some of us might have actually started a meditation practice during COVID, taking even 2 minutes to breathe deeply. And if it's available, through our nose and out through our nose. And the nasal breath actually allows the breath to get deeper down into the lower lobes of our lungs. And again, the slower breath into our bodies, out of our bodies, slowing down and maybe just sitting still for a few moments, being aware of our breath, actually will shift our nervous system. So we come from a sympathetic nervous system to a parasympathetic nervous system. And the difference between the two is fight and flight, sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest, very similar to sleeping. And that's why the meditation practice and breathing practice is so beneficial, because we know that as our bodies sleep, we restore and our bodies start healing ourselves with a controlled, slow breath in and out of our bodies. We're just sending messages into our brains that we are safe, and then you become more present, and all of a sudden our heart rate will come down and we'll just feel a little more at ease. There'll be a fullness to the breath, and then it comes a little further down into our chest. It might expand our rib cage. And the really important one is softening through our bellies. And of course, we walk around, sit around, tightening our abs all day. We want to suck them in and support our posture. But a few moments of soft belly breathing will actually allow that nervous system shift to a little more calm, a lot less stress, and a relaxed state. And sometimes when we take those breaks just to breathe, and everybody has 2 minutes to spare, you can go back to whatever it is you need to get done, your lists of tasks, your working, your parenting, et cetera, with a little reset, a fresh mind, a little more space, and a whole lot more patience, hopefully, and a lot less stress.
So some good exercises, breathing exercises to do before bed. How soon before bed would you do them if you're having trouble, calming down from a very stressful day, or there's a lot going on in your head and you just can't shut down?
Yeah. We could do a whole nother segment on sleep, because when we put our eyes and ears in front of screens, of course, our subconscious brain, that's why sometimes we can't sleep very well, is because our subconscious brain is like our processor. So the things that we didn't automatically just process and work through in our conscious selves and our conscious time, our subconscious brain took in a lot. And so it's processing, right? So it's doing that spinning wheel at nighttime. So it is nice to do the shift. And I think it's important to perhaps limit screen time, 2 hours, I think 2 hours before bedtime. And if we are on our screens, especially if it's a tablet or a phone, turning it to the night mode where it is darker. So that blue light doesn't, because it increases our cortisol, it wakes us up, right? It stimulates us. So stimulating ourselves with our blue light and our screens right before bed, we're already kind of behind an 8 ball. So we want to make sure that we kind of decrease the stimulus before bedtime. We can do that breathing just before bed, and sometimes, or as we just slide into bed, close our eyes, put our hands on our bellies, and just breathe into our bellies so that our hands lift and lower. And actually counting our breath brings us to the most present moment possible. So if we breathe in, 1, and count just 10 breaths. Sometimes that's enough and it's challenging because our brains are going all the time, and just to count 10 breaths might be a challenge for some. So I think that would be our first step.
Okay, we are rapidly running out of time. You and I could talk for hours. We've only got about 4 minutes left, so I want to just throw it over to you for the last 4 minutes.
So let's talk about mobility, flexibility in our bodies, because just as much as active physical movement is, it's so important to actually stretch the muscles, even if we're just at a desk or a chair all day. So I'm just going to show you some great stretches that we can do. So this is, once again, my favorite chair. So if we are sitting at a desk all day, or you're just sitting more than normal, let's say, a great stretch I always start with is chest expansion. So if we have a chair that's not on wheels, that's pretty sturdy, shift to the edge of the chair, breathe into the front of your chest, and really open through your shoulders and chest, great chest expansion. Taking our arms behind us, of course, and just stretching through the front of the chest and shoulders, which these are the muscles we use all day. Our arms are in front of us. So this is a great stretch to keep our shoulders mobile and open, and also allow a little more breath into our bodies once again. So think about all the space we have in our bodies for breathing, and what we actually use is a lot less than what we have available. From here, we can do a little bit of stretching, and it might actually just bring our arms overhead, and if we can, just bring our chest to our thighs. And right here, we feel a great lower back stretch, and rounding our upper back, feeling the stretch between the shoulder blades. And as we are in any of the poses or movements or stretches, we think about where we can land our breath. And in this one, if we breathe between our shoulder blades, we actually feel the stretch enhanced. So a really great stretch for our upper back, just taking our arms up again. And if we have a chair, this might be where we start our flexibility practice, or even, the beginnings of yoga. And we can add a little twist for our spine, because of course our spine needs to be moved. So we have that beautiful mobility again, just for a twist.
We've just got over a minute, Mandy. I thought I'd give you your time cue.
Yeah. And then, of course, because we've been sitting all day, these muscles get really tight. I'll keep my chair so I can grab one leg, maybe balance, and I'll just turn to the side and push my hips forward, squeeze my bum, and hold my heel really close to my butt. This is going to stretch hip flexors and quads. And that's a really important stretch. Even if we are adding more movement, say walking, running, cycling, these are our muscles that we keep tightening, whether we're sitting or whether we're moving, because they are our functional forward moving muscles. And if we have the balance, we'll just use it on the other leg.
Okay, you know what, Mandy? I'm going to have to stop you there, because believe it or not, we're out of time, so you're just going to have to come back for another one.
Very good. I don't mind that at all.
Excellent. We would love to have you back. And thanks to all of you out there for joining us again. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison. Stay safe, everyone.